Run, party, repeat. Welcome to the East Coast Adventures Dirt and Vert podcast, where we talk all things running, racing, and training to help you get ready for your next big adventure.
Learn from our successes and our failures, and have fun at the same time. Join us right here every week with inspiring guests who share their captivating tales from the trails. And remember, nobody cares.
Run faster. All right, welcome back. This is East Coast Adventures with the Dirt and Vert podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Mike.
And we have a guest with us today, Kassandra Klemenz, who is a triathlete and a runner and a soon-to-be ultra runner. But she is also a double lung transplant recipient. And she just ran the Knoxville Marathon not too long ago and completed it. And Kassandra, if you don't care, just tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into running.
Hi, I'm Kassandra Klemenz. I'm 29 years old. I got a double lung transplant about 5 years ago due to my genetic disease, cystic fibrosis. I was 22 when I got my double lung transplant. I had to have the double lung transplant because I caught another infection from another person with cystic fibrosis. So we're not allowed to be within 6 feet of each other. And I caught her really bad lung infection, and it ate my lungs and deteriorated them. So I had to travel to, so I got put on oxygen, and me and my husband were, not husband at the time, was my boyfriend. We were trying to live the best life that we could before I had to eventually have a transplant or just decide not to and just end my life, basically. So we put a bunch of oxygen tanks and rafts, and we would go rafting on the Ocoee. He hooked up an oxygen concentrator to his car, and we would walk as far as my oxygen leash would let me to the river or something. So when I got to be 21, 22, I was getting really sick, and I had to make up a choice whether to get it or not. I decided to go ahead and get my double lung transplant because it's either I died not getting it or I died trying. So I might as well die trying, and if, it worked out well, there's some more time I got. So I had to leave Tennessee because I didn't have insurance in Tennessee, and they wouldn't approve me. So I had to travel to Massachusetts to get my double lung transplant. I met these two random people online, and they let me live with them for a little bit. And then one person that I met whose husband died of a double lung transplant drove me to Massachusetts with 20 oxygen tanks in her car. So then I got there and I was living with these strangers, and they were taking care of me. My boyfriend couldn't come at the time. He had work. So I got an appointment to go see Massachusetts, the cystic fibrosis clinic. And they were telling me if I didn't get admitted right away that I was going to die soon, which I already didn't know. So I got admitted, and at that point I was at 20% lung function. So I was still able to sort of walk. I could talk a little bit. I was on 20 liters of oxygen because my oxygen, I couldn't get enough in no matter what. So I got in the hospital, and within 3 months, my lung function dropped to about 8%. I couldn't walk. I couldn't talk. I was on a BiPAP that basically breathed for me. And I got a call for lungs. So my boyfriend was there at the time, and he actually would brush my teeth, bathe me, and wash my hair for me because I couldn't do anything myself. And he was there through it all, and would lay in bed with me and comfort me. And then I got a call for lungs one day, and we were all excited, ready to go. And they took me down. They got me prepped and ready. They took me down to the OR, and at the very last minute, they told me that it wasn't a good match for me. So I had to go back up to my room. It's called a dry run. And so when I went back up, they were talking to me about intubating me to let me pass peacefully that night because I couldn't, my carbon dioxide levels were too high and I wasn't able to function anymore. And then, so we were discussing that and like deciding to do that. And then out of nowhere, I got another call for lungs. And so me and my boyfriend were like, oh yeah, whatever. We're just gonna do our own thing. So they didn't put me on, they didn't intubate me yet because they, were ready for me to have lungs. Well, I didn't believe it. So I was like doing my last face mask and I was letting him do my hair for the last time, sort of thing. And we were sort of saying our goodbyes at that point. But then they came and got me, and then it was like actually like real. So they took me down to the OR, and then the next thing I know, I'm like waking up a couple days later, and I still had the breathing tube down my throat. So like I was like, oh, I'm alive. It's sort of a weird feeling when you're like, oh, I made it. So double lung transplants are actually one of the hardest to transplant because they are so intricate and fragile that a lot of them don't make it through the surgery. So yeah, I was like, oh, I'm alive. So, and I had to sit there for about an hour with the breathing tube down my throat because I woke up too early. And so it was still breathing for me. It was weird because I was trying to breathe. And I was crying because I was so upset because I just wanted to have the tube out of my throat and like my lungs. So about an hour later of me just laying there crying, they finally pulled it. And the first breath is not what people think it's like. It's not like a big gasp of air. It's more like a struggle. So I was breathing good, better than what I was before I went in. So I was like sitting there gasping for air, and like my rib cage was so small and confined where I couldn't expand my lungs for a very long time. That my new lungs were hitting the size of my rib cages and they couldn't expand it. So it was like my ribs and everything was super sore, and I had to work on like breathing exercises to expand my rib cage so then my new lungs could have room. So a couple days after that, like my husband, well, my boyfriend at the time, he could come in, and apparently I was talking a lot, and he was like, holy crap. He was like, why are you talking so much? I was like, I've been wanting to tell you all this stuff for like 2 years and I couldn't. he was like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm perfect. And now he's like, you talk way too much. So we were getting me ready and stuff, and like they had to pull chest tubes out, like 8 of them. So it's like almost an inch wide that they stick in your lungs, and it like helps inflate them and drain them. So when you get better, they like rip those out and stitch you up without any like numbing medicine or anything. I feel like that was worse than the actual transplant itself. And so I was up and walking within like 4 days. I was wanting to walk so far that the machine that was keeping the suction, it couldn't keep up with me. So I couldn't walk as far as I wanted to. So I was like, and I was walking and talking, which I haven't really ever gotten to do my whole life because my genetic condition, like with my lungs, it was just so hard. And so I got out of the hospital within like 2 weeks of having my transplant, which is really a crazy time because a lot of people are in there for months. And before I got sick, I did gymnastics growing up. I did it till I was like 15 years old. I got to travel and do competitive gymnastics. And then I did CrossFit, and I did CrossFit with like my oxygen tank on. And I'd wheel it to the other station. And then And then you saw like my oxygen hose like flapping and hit me in the face when I was doing some pull-ups. But yeah, so like they said that my body was like super strong and conditioned, that's why I got to get out so early and compared to everybody else. And I wasn't able to do any biking or running for 2 years because they had to crack my sternum.
Oh.
And so I told the surgeons, I was like, so usually they wire people's sternums together instead of using plates. I told them, I said, I want to do some crazy shit when I get them with this transplant. I was like, I don't want it if I can't do some crazy stuff. And they were like, okay. So they gave me plates, and so then if I could go rafting and whitewater and do all the stuff I've always wanted to do. And so they gave me that. So I couldn't run or bike for at least 2 years. I didn't really listen. I mean, that's my whole point is I'm wanting to push the boundaries of transplantation because we don't know what someone can do until they do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. When I got out, I kept doing my breathing exercises and yoga, and my lungs just kept expanding and expanding. And right now, my lung function is like 113%.
Ooh.
So usually people
Amazing.
after their transplant go like 50 to 60%. So I've been working really hard to get that number up. And like, so I've never been able to breathe this well my whole entire life. It was always a struggle. I was always doing breathing treatments. I was always having to do a vest that vibrated like the mucus out of me to try to get the infection out. I was hospitalized for like months at a time. I had 98 like surgeries prior to my transplant. So like I was literally just trying to survive. And I always wanted to see, like I always wanted to run. I always watched people run, and I was like, oh, that'd be really cool to do that, but I can't because I can only go for a short distance. And my like lungs could not keep up with my body at the time. So about a year ago, I was like, I went and I helped my friend with the Knoxville Marathon, and I gave him goose. And I was like, I really want to start running. I really like. I mean, I was inspired by him, and I was like, I'm just gonna start. So like, not long after, I was like, I'm gonna go on a little run, just see what happens. So I invited my friend, who's like was my neighbor at the time, and yeah, we ran 6 miles, and he was like, I thought you said you don't run. I was like, I don't. I was like, this was my first time running, and then of course, yeah, and then of course I had IT band problems. I was like, that sucks. And I kept asking him, I was like, what do you think it is? I was like, I've never had this issue. He's like, yeah, because you never could do endurance sports. So yeah, I first started out with mountain biking. That was in whitewater kayaking a little bit. So that was my first start with things. I did mountain biking just because I wanted something that could help me a little bit more with endurance besides depending on just my body, which now I don't understand why I did that, but it is what it is now. So I started out with that, and because I loved being out in nature and I just wanted to see what I could do. And then I started getting into mountain bike races, and I mean, I never won anything. I can just say I finished and that it was fun. And then after I ran the 6 miles, I told my husband, I was like, I want to start getting coached, and I want to start like working on duathlon type stuff. And he was like, where did this come from? I was like, I've just always wanted to do this kind of stuff. And I was like, I might as well. And then not long after that, I started adding in the swimming. So now I'm doing triathlon stuff. And so now I'm training for my full Ironman next year. And then after I think I do my full Ironman, I definitely want to do an ultra because that's on my list for sure.
Goodness.
That is absolutely awesome.
That is awesome.
So let's go back for just a minute. So after after the transplant was done and
Mhm.
you got, did you get to come back, or did you have to stay close to the hospital for a while after that?
Oh yeah, so I had to stay close to the hospital. I had to stay close to Massachusetts for a whole year. And right when that year was up, I came straight back home. So now Vanderbilt does all of my care and all my like overseeing everything about my transplant.
And where are you originally from?
I'm here from I'm originally from Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay, I
Okay.
thought so. I just didn't
Yeah.
want to assume.
Yeah, I'm from
Um,
here.
You have to go back periodically and get checked out, etc. I'm sure, right? I mean, just to make sure everything's still flowing and doing good.
Yeah, so I get checked out every 3 months, and
Okay.
then if I get the flu or anything, that's really scary for people with transplants. So when I get the flu, I definitely had to go back more, or any kind of cold. I had to go back more frequently, and I had to have a bronchoscopy. I had to have a bronch every single time I get something, just to check my lungs to see if they're rejecting, because any kind of cold, flu, or virus can immediately reject your organ or your lungs.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is it tough for you? I mean, I know we'll get into your races. Is it tough for you at this point when you're training to, or did it would start out when you first got into it to distinguish the difference between, like when I go running and I'm having trouble breathing, I'm like, Mike, you're either pushing it too hard or you're doing something out of your realm. Was
Mhm.
it hard for you to distinguish, like, maybe this is the lungs or maybe this is just hard training? Is that
Yeah.
a,
So we had to do a lot of base training for me. So a lot of zone 2 base training, because I at first couldn't distinguish if it was my lungs or my body. And so my lungs, so I can't necessarily like feel them, but I know they're getting tired, if that makes sense.
mm.
But yeah, I realized that I needed a lot of breath work because I've always taken super shallow breaths, never have been able to take in a full breath. So I've had to distinguish whether it was me breathing hard and doing too much compared
Mhm.
to like if it was just my body not being able to push itself. And
Right.
what we've come to find out is that my body is actually not strong enough to maintain the strength of my lungs, what they are capable of.
so you
And
probably have, I mean, you probably got blessed in that way with someone that probably was an endurance athlete.
yeah, I'll actually touch on that a little bit. So I am part of a study. It's called a lung in a box. So instead of them freezing the lungs, they put the lungs in this big box that has IV antibiotics and blood constantly flowing through it. So they're not freezing, so the cells aren't freezing and getting damaged. And I was the 12th person at Massachusetts to have that happen. And my surgeons, that's why they turned away the other set of lungs, because they said that they weren't good enough for me, that they wanted me to have the best set of lungs that I could have because they knew that I was going to do good things with them. And so they told me some details about my recipient. They told me that I assume it's a he, I don't know why, I have a feeling, well, that they were an endurance athlete and they liked running. And so their lungs were in super great condition. And sadly, because of the size that I am, it had to be a younger person, more like in their teens and a child.
Mm.
So I'm I am very blessed with the lungs that I got because they were perfect and they were doing the same things that I'm doing now. And so now I carry them with me with every run, every race, every bike I do, because I would never have been able to do any of this without them donating their lungs to me.
Mhm.
Man, what a story! Like, to think about the fact that, you're talking about with the doctor your life being over, like getting, I guess basically getting your affairs in order, and you and your boyfriend are saying your goodbyes, and he's, helping you fix your hair, and then all of a sudden you get the good news of transplant, and I'm sure you didn't want to get your hopes up, but man, what such a low point to such a high point in a short amount of time. Like, to have lungs, then you don't have lungs.
Yeah.
Your affairs in order to, okay, we got lungs now, and you're probably like, whatever.
Yeah.
Keep fixing my hair. Keep fixing my hair.
Yeah, do your face mask.
But I would like to take a step back and just ask, like, at what age were you diagnosed?
Okay. I was diagnosed basically before I was born, because before I was born, they could tell that my stomach was ruptured. And so they did an embryonic fluid test on me to see if I had CF, because that is like an indicator of cystic fibrosis. So before I was born, I had like 8 surgeries done on my stomach to put it back together. So that's how they could, and then they did a sweat test to be sure, because insurance wants a sweat test to be sure that's what's wrong with me. So yeah, before I was born basically is when they knew that I had cystic fibrosis.
So even when you were little, you probably weren't able to like really run and do certain things then, I guess. So
No,
this is all kind of like you're starting fresh, right? Like doing the things that you've probably watched every other kid and every other teenager do, and just kind of like thinking, I wish I could do that.
Yeah. I remember like I wanted to try out for track so often, and like I would even go to the track like sign ups and like the tryouts, and I'd like stand there and I'd watch. And I was like, and I did gymnastics, but that short burst of energy that you just put into something and then you're done and you can rest for however long you need. Running necessarily isn't like that. You've got to keep doing a workout for an hour to an hour and a half or 2. And so, yeah, I would look at all these kids running around wanting to do that. And then I grew up basically in a hospital. So like, I wasn't socialized really with kids, because I couldn't, because they would get me sick. And then like in gymnastics, I was with the older girls because I was at their level. So like none of them really talked to me either, because I was the youngest one. So I've always been really introverted and like would live out my life through other people, sort of.
Yeah.
So yeah. And now it's like I look back and it feels like a totally different person that life was. Like, I don't feel like that was me anymore, because I feel so different than who like what I used to be and like what I had to go through. Like, I don't even feel like that was me. So it's really weird to look back and realize, like, think that.
Yeah, and I mean that's so sad to think about, with you just standing there at the track watching these kids run, wishing it was, you could do that. But you have that opportunity now, and it's like you got to, you had to endure that part to truly appreciate where you're at now, and you're getting to do some amazing things now, and you truly are going to push the boundaries of, what a double lung transplant recipient can do. I think you're already starting to show that.
Yeah.
And I mean, just, it's so amazing to think about the timing and the gift of you ending up with like an endurance runner or an endurance athlete's lungs and the things you're going to do. And I mean, the fact that you're like 113% of your lung capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably more than you, Mark.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sitting here thinking, I don't want to go look at her time. She might have passed me in the Knoxville Marathon.
I was close to Brian.
Were you?
I was only like 15 minutes away.
She was right there with you, Mike.
Yeah. Yep.
Because right past me, I think like we were on like 20. We were on that long stretch down there where all the college students and all that,
Oh
and he
yeah,
passed me right in there like mile 22 or 23. So
that's
that's
so
where he
funny.
passed me at. So
Okay, yeah, my husband was like, "He's right up there. You're fine." And then I cramped at like mile 22.
yeah, that's cramp zone. That's where
It is.
Yeah.
got
Cramp
literally
area over there.
everybody.
Yeah, it was crazy, and I've never cramped before. And due to my transplant, one of my legs only works like 65%. And so that day, it wanted to start acting up. And I was like, "What are you doing? You haven't worked for since my transplant." And I was like, "Oh, now you want to like show me that you can do something, but what you're doing is just cramping." That was,
Starts
yeah,
looking at the leg transplant now. So
yeah. Like, okay, take my leg off. I don't need it.
Well, so at what point, like this truly just amazes me here, because like at some point you probably just realize like I can just breathe.
Yeah.
And I know that wasn't immediate, but like I'm sure days and days or even weeks after, at one point you probably just woke up and thought, this is different, or like, I can just breathe. What was that feeling like?
Yeah. So it was about 3 weeks or so after I remember it. It was like 3 weeks like after my transplant, and I finally like got a good night's sleep. They were tapering down my prednisone finally, and I woke up and I just sat there and I like just breathed for hours, and I was like, wow, I'm not coughing and I'm not like wheezing. And like Kevin turned to me, that's the he was like, "That's the best sound I think I've ever heard." And he's just,
Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome.
And he just like laid there with me for like an hour and we were just breathing. And ever since then, I just like in the morning I'll just lay there and breathe, because that at that moment it hit me that I've never had that, and it's such a gift to be able to breathe easily in the morning, or even throughout the day. It's such a big gift that like a lot of people just overlook, and it's like I never want to overlook that again. And like I want to be thankful every single day that I can breathe without coughing, without wheezing, without oxygen, without a BiPAP, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I can't imagine what that feeling would be like. Your husband's name's Kevin?
Yes, his name's Kevin.
We got to
Yeah.
give Kevin a shout out, because I mean, for someone to plan all of the stuff that he planned just so you could go rafting, so he could get you down to the river, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
It takes a special person. So
Mhm.
you have a very special person with you, and he obviously has a very special person. So
Yeah. Thanks.
that's amazing, and congratulations to you guys, because it sounds like you have a really strong relationship.
Yeah, we do actually. We trauma bonded. I'm kidding. No, we love each other. but
was
yeah,
was looking back when you were younger and everything, did you forecast that you wanted to be active more, and two, did you piece that together saying, I know at some point in my life we're going to come across this topic as a lung transplant? I mean, at what point did you realize that this is inevitable, that
yeah,
one, I'm going to have a lung transplant, and two, that, and Compton may get to this when we start talking about your races, at what point did you say, I know there's more I want to do, outside of this little realm of gymnastics?
yeah. I actually never thought that I would be able to do anything. I know that transplant is talked about to people with cystic fibrosis because of end stage lung failure. Um, I never wanted a transplant to begin with. I just wanted to die and just pass on. I didn't want to be a burden to people, and my some of my family members, like my cousin and some of my friends and Kevin, made me realize that I'm worth like I'm worth helping and sort of saving and being there for. And their love sort of changed my mind about wanting a transplant.
Mhm.
and I wanted to spend more time with them because I love them so much. So within a year of me getting sick, I changed my mind of wanting one. And then even after getting my transplant, I didn't necessarily think I would be wanting to do endurance sports. I've always been super shy, and I'm always afraid of letting myself down and not being able to accomplish my goal. And Kevin has sort of been like, who cares if you like hit your goal? At least you're doing something. So I guess I sort of have gotten his mindset. It's like, it doesn't matter if you win or you go out and, beat everybody. It's the point that you're doing it and you're doing it the best that you can do. Because with my gymnastics training, it was you go out, you win, and you beat everybody. And if you don't do that, then you're sort of a failure. So I guess, some PTSD with some gymnastics stuff. And so he just like showed me that, you don't have to be the best at it as long as you enjoy it. So I was like, you're really right. So I was like, I'm going to try running and I'm going to try doing this endurance thing. And if I suck at it and I have like 12-minute miles or something, then okay, that's what it is. And then I don't put pressure on myself to like perform at a top level or to win. I just try to go out there and like have fun with it now. So, did that answer your
Well,
question?
no, you've answered it. I think
Okay.
you have a better grasp on a lot of things that a lot of runners just haven't got to yet. That you actually appreciate and enjoy whatever you appreciate and enjoy whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're not chasing, like you said, you're not chasing first place. You're
Yeah.
chasing the live for the race.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
something you never even thought you were going to get the opportunity to do.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
just being grateful for that. And it's
Sometimes, yeah.
I hear you say you don't want to be a burden to others, and I've heard so many other people say that. And that when you say that, you just don't think about all the loved ones that would miss you, and that want to be with you and see you. So it's kind of twofold, because you feel like you're a burden for people, but at the same time, they love you and they're trying to do everything in their power to make sure that you're with them, because that would be the biggest piece, is that they don't want to be without you. So sounds like you've got a huge support group around you.
Yeah, I do. That's for sure. They'll travel to Massachusetts with me if I ask them to. No, but yeah, for sure. And going back to your statement of like, you said that some runners don't go out and appreciate things. My coach is sort of like, Kassandra, stop looking around and being, the flowers, the sun. She's like, focus on your training some. And like, I'll go ride bikes with people and I'm like, oh my God, they're doing so good. And I'm like crying. And she's like, dude, I'm like so happy for like everybody else. And like, when the person's in front of me, I'm like, I'm so happy you're doing better than me. And my coach is like, come on, be a little bit more competitive. But I'm like, I am competitive, but like, I just want to be happy and like grateful for everybody and like what they can achieve and accomplish themselves. So
With that statement, you are truly going to love ultras.
Yes.
Because
yeah.
that's almost how everybody is on the course.
Okay.
Everybody is like that. So you're going to fit in just perfect. I mean, the first place person's running by, if you're like doing a loop course, and they'll just be like, you're doing awesome. And like it's just huge camaraderie out there. So
Yeah.
you're going to fit in perfect. So
Awesome.
I hope you do one sooner than later.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to. I'll be out there with you guys before you know it.
Love it. Love that. So
Yeah.
let's jump in real quick. So when was like your first like true event? When did you finally take the jump and like decide that you were going to go do something competitive?
I think my first event was the Wednesday night mountain bike races in Knoxville. I started doing those and I got super into them, and then I started doing like the Knox bike racing, they're longer events. And I was like, oh, this is fun. And then the next thing I know is like not even a couple months later, I'm like, I'm going to do a duathlon. So I found a swimmer and then I mountain biked and like ran some. And so yeah, that was like my first event. My first race was this January. Is that a lie? No, that is a lie. I'm sorry. Okay. My first running race was the Dirty South 10K. So it didn't go very well. It rained. I popped my leg out of place and I shoved it back in to finish. And that's where I get competitive.
That sounds like an ultra runner right there.
So a lady was like, I was screaming and one of my friends was luckily behind me and he like carried me a little bit over and the lady came up to me. She goes, oh my God, your leg is sideways. I was like, give me a second. I'll pop it back in. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I like held it like sort of across the ground and I shoved it in and it popped and it popped and my friend was like, did you just pop your leg? I was like, yeah. Let's start running. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I paid to finish the race.
Yeah.
I get that t-shirt.
So I finished it and like I didn't have a bad time either. I was right in the mid pack. But that was my first running race. And my husband was like, and I had to go to physical therapy and stuff because like it sort of screwed up where I shoved it in.
I couldn't imagine why.
Yeah. And so yeah, I had to do
like, here, smack my foot against that tree.
that's literally
Have you done that before?
No.
So you just decided you were going to put it back yourself.
So a couple of my friends was on the course too, and I was like, I cannot let them beat me. And so I was like, either I'm limping with my leg out of place or I'm going to shove it back in and try to run. So I shoved it in and I started sort of hobbling and running along. I finished. So yeah.
Was it hurting really bad at that point?
Oh yeah. It hurt really bad. And they had a physical therapist after and he was like, you need help with your leg. I was like, yeah, I do. I was like, he was like, does it hurt? I was like, oh yeah. And I like sort of damaged my PCL and something else on my knee. I forget now. So I did some damage to it, but it's also on the leg that doesn't work that well. So it is what it is.
That leg's that's the second strike right there.
Well, I can tell you, I've heard a lot of stories from runners about putting fingers back into sockets or, a tree falling and hitting them or,
Do you want me to tell you another story?
cutting their leg wide open and finishing the race, but I have never heard of anybody putting their leg back in socket. That's crazy.
Do you want me to tell you
Let's
another
do the
story?
other one.
Let's hear
Okay. So I went out to South Carolina to do Dirt Diggler. That was my first race. And I thought I could do a 50-mile race for my first time.
Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah, why
She
not?
fits in. She's an ultra runner.
Yeah. So I had a kidney stone before I went and I was like, oh, it's fine. It'll shoot back in my kidney. It's okay. So I did. I was like, it's okay.
I almost want to ask you what's worse, the kidney stone or the lung transplant, because
Oh God, no, for real. So I put a numbing patch on it, and so I got to mile 20, and I felt like my kidney was shaking, and something was just wrong, and the firefighters were like, "Ma'am, you need to stop," and I was like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And they're like, "Well, you got blood running down your legs," and I was like, "Oh," and it was raining, so I couldn't tell if it was like rain or blood. So they thought I was, menstrual cycle. And so I go in there and they took me to the bathroom and I was like, look, I passed my kidney stone. And they were like, what are you talking about? I was like, I've been trying to pass this kidney stone for months now. And I was like, so do I get to finish my race? And they're like, no, you're not finishing your race. So, yeah, that one hurt really bad. But I thought it was just my body hurting from riding so long. It was not. So, yeah, that's another story. I've been through worse.
I love how she's like, it'll just shoot back in my kidney.
Shoot back.
I'm like a ninja. I'm going to suck that thing back up in here and we're going to just roll.
She would be great at an aid station because if somebody come in hurting, she'd be like, "Oh, you're gonna be fine." Let me show you.
Send them on.
I'm fine.
Well, I mean, if anybody rolls up with their leg out of socket, she has
She'll
got
pop it.
that.
Oh yeah, I'll put it back in for them. They may need some physical therapy after, but I'll get them to the finish line.
I can't even believe that you did that. That blows my mind that you did that. Like, if I'm laying on the side of a trail and my leg is facing the other way, I'm going to be like, someone's going to have to carry me out of here.
I need a doctor now.
And she's like, nope, we got this. No one's passing me.
Literally. I was like, my friends cannot beat me. And then they passed the finish line a little while later and they're like, what's wrong with you? I was like, well, in order to beat you, I had to pop my leg back in.
So did you trip over something?
Oh, yeah.
Or did it just...
I tripped over my own foot and then hit a brick.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was where my IT band was a little stuck. So it got stuck and then I tripped over my foot. And then there was this random brick in the way. And then just so happened the corner of my knee had to hit it and knock it out of place.
Oh.
So yeah, God. I've been trying to find the brick ever since. I can't find it. So I don't know.
Well, stay away from that brick.
Yeah. Someone apparently got it because I haven't found it now. So yeah, no bricks for me.
So you're fairly early in your running, biking, triathlon career then, correct?
Yeah. So I've only been I've been mountain biking for 2 years and I just started running last year, about a year ago. So yeah, I'm pretty new and I've only been swimming for about 4 months. So yeah, I'm new. I'm very new. I'm a baby.
No, that's absolutely awesome. I think it's kind of cool to think about how you've already jumped into all three sports. Like, like you're trying to just go right into doing the things you wanted to do or the things you've watched people do that you're like, well, this shit ain't fair. It's my turn, and here you are, you're doing it.
Exactly.
And I think that's awesome. So what is next?
So I'm doing 2 full Ironmans next year and I'm doing a half. And then I may take a break from Ironmans and do an ultra because I want to do one. So that's sort of next. But see, with my ADHD stuff, I need a bunch of stuff to focus on. So that's why I like triathlons. Because it helps my head. But I don't know. So yeah.
Well, if you do an ultra, just pick you a trail and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll have plenty of stuff to stare at and keep your mind flowing. and wherever your mind takes you.
Okay. But yeah, so, that's next.
How long did you spend? So you obviously, so is the marathon your longest run so far?
I guess altogether, I did a relay a couple weeks ago for women and it was 28, almost 29 miles. So yes and no. So yeah, that's pretty much, I guess, my furthest one.
All in one go, I guess.
Yeah, all in one go. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So how did that kind of come about? And did you specifically get a coach because you wanted to do the marathon?
No, not really. So with gymnastics, I've always had a coach, and I've had a coach for everything that I do. So I saw how running went without a coach, and that was me hurting myself. So I was like, in order for me to get like not injure myself further, I wanted to get a coach to teach me, like, help me with biking and running and my like eventually the triathlon. So I've always thought that you should get coaches because they of course they have more knowledge than you, and they can teach you all the shortcuts and help you not have to learn the harder lessons yourself. So I got the coach to sort of, I guess she did help me train for the marathon, but that was not our biggest goal. My marathon training is literally just to help me with my triathlon training. So yeah, that's where that comes into play. And I wanted to do the Knoxville Marathon because that's where I grew up. And then I'm wanting to do the Boston one soon. So, because that's where I got my transplant. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Well, and that is only going to help you even further with these Ironmans you're wanting to do next year. So
yeah, I'm excited.
yeah, that's going to be awesome. Have you got locations picked out you want to go to for the Ironmans?
I know that I want to do Chattanooga. And so I know I want to do the full Ironman in Chattanooga. I'm not exactly sure where I want to do the other ones. I think maybe Michigan. A lot of my friends like that. I want a hilly route and then I want a flat route to see where I'm at. Because
Yeah.
I'm not a flat athlete, if you say. I do so much better with hills and running up the hills instead of just like going flat and just like doing the one pace the whole time. I'm not good at that. So I want to see where I'm at on both.
That's
So, yeah.
good.
Yeah, that's kind of the norm. Some people are either really, really good at like climbing and
Yeah.
keeping the different motions going, and some people are just really good at fast and flat. So it's kind of different for everybody on that piece.
Yeah, I'm definitely a climber. Everything I do, I'm like my bike, I'm good at climbing. Running, I'm good at climbing. So that's my strong point for sure. So that's
That
why
is
I was
not
like,
my strong point.
would you say, sorry?
That is not my strong point.
Oh,
Climbing.
are you a flat one? You
I
flat
like
runner?
flat stuff. Yep.
I almost said, are you a flat?
Yeah, he's flat and kind of fast.
Kind of fast.
Try to be.
That's funny.
So how did with the marathon and like that being your longest distance and going in one go, how did fueling go? Because that was probably like completely different for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I did not fuel correctly. So with my genetic disease, I basically sweat salt pellets. I don't sweat like sweat. So after races, you could shake salt off of me basically. So I didn't take in enough salt during my race, and that's why I cramped at mile 23. So now I'm having to do like 2 element packets during my race just to cover all my salt intake and what I sweat out basically. My coach says that I have the highest sweat score that she's ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's something I'm having to dial in and really work on with my training is like making sure I get in as much salt as I can.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a game changer for you in endurance events if you get your salt dialed in.
Yeah, exactly. And then where I'm so small, I don't really have a big glycogen storage. So I have to eat I eat every 30 minutes and I have a Martin 160 for the 40 something carbs. So I have to make sure I'm eating those all the time to refill my glycogen. So I'm just having to make sure I'm doing all those things to maintain my nutrition. It's getting better. It was hard at first because I didn't know any of that. So, yeah.
It's definitely a learning curve, even if you do know, because
Yeah.
unfortunately, you don't really know until you test it. And the only place you truly get to test it at is in a race.
That's what I feel like. Like that's when you really know like what you did wrong and what you did right. I agree.
Yeah, I
with
mean, you can use it in like your long runs and get a good test, but your race pace is usually going to be the final test because you're pushing just a little harder in a race and your stomach's going to be just a little bit more upset than normal. So you find out real quick.
Exactly. Yep.
Did you have any stomach issues at all?
No, my stomach is strong as a tank.
Wow.
That's great.
That's one of the good things that works really well on me. Is my
That's
stomach.
definitely going to help you in those Ironmans.
Yeah, exactly. That's what my coach was saying. She's like, a lot of people can't even down the gels.
That's me.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know. It's probably where I grew up on, sorry, hospital food, bland, nasty, and I'm just used to it, so nothing bothers me.
Well, the good thing about a Martin gel, they don't even really taste like anything. So
No, those are my
Yeah,
favorite.
exactly. I feel like they don't either.
yeah, they just go down.
They do.
They just go down.
What better than goos that you like?
Oh, I love goos. All kinds of flavors.
All kinds.
Waiting on them to make like a beer flavor.
The best
That
goo
would be so
flavor
fun.
is birthday cake.
They got a good Coca-Cola or cola flavored one. I like
I
it.
haven't tried it yet.
Yeah.
So you got the Ironmans coming up. Are you doing anything else this year that's on your list?
Yeah. I have a 50-mile mountain bike race at Lula Lake. Yeah. Lula Lake. What else is there? I have a Lewiston race. I have the Dirty South race. And then I have like 10 other little triathlons that I'm doing. So
You're doing a lot.
Yeah, I have something almost every weekend.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to follow along on your little journey here. This is pretty cool to see you doing all this stuff, and definitely for the Ironmans next year.
Yeah.
And then when you get ready for an endurance run, you let us know. We can help you there, help you find one.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's what I need help on. It's like I just need help knowing which one is like a good first one to do, and like to go like which ones I shouldn't do for my first time.
Yeah.
I know there's some out there that's like, don't do that for your first one. So yeah, I do need help and guidance in that area.
I wish I would have asked that before I did my first one, but I didn't.
Yeah,
so you're doing much better than me already.
Don't do so.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Which one did you do first?
I went straight from a marathon, like the Knoxville Marathon. I run it the very first year they had it. So I was this dude that just like saw it and thought, I want a piece of that. And I had no clue about training. I went straight to it. And then I kind of jumped on the other end of the spectrum and kind of got hung up and went straight to 100K. So,
oh, wow.
You know, of course, it was a bad race. But then after that, we all kind of just started tapering and getting closer to the hundreds. And of course, I think we all picked a hard one just because it just seemed attractive. You know, we're squirrels. We just, if we see something that looks attractive with a shiny ball, we're like, take my money. That's who
Here you go.
I picked mine based on the belt buckle. That's all that mattered to me. It was the belt buckle. It was the Warhammer 100, and it was the coolest belt buckle I'd seen. I was like, that's what I'm doing.
Goodness. Yeah. Well, I hope it was worth it.
It was not a good first 100 miler to choose, but you know, it's fine.
Hey, my first 100 miler was fun on a track.
Yeah, that's true.
In a circle forever.
In a circle. That's the that's the one I need. In a circle.
No, it's not that fun.
So they have all kinds of
that fun,
but it's you run 24 hours on a track.
Oh, okay.
And you know, and you know, the goal is try to get over 100 miles or more. If you get over 100 miles, you get a buckle. But 100 miles on a track.
That's a little mundane, I feel like.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And
jack your
If
mind.
you have an ADHD, it's going to be fine because you'll be swimming with the dolphins while you're running on this.
I'll be in
But-
another world somewhere.
Yeah, because that's definitely what helps me. But what you don't think about is like you're on the track for 24 hours straight. You basically rotate directions every 4 hours.
Mhm.
But the thing that you don't really think about is that you always have that constant lean on the inside. So whichever knee is on the inside, you always are like leaning on it. And after about 12 hours, it don't matter. You've already went on both legs and you're like, oh, this is, I'm starting to feel this. This isn't fun.
It's not
That
fun.
is true.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe not.
I don't know if I'd recommend that for your first
No.
100.
No, I don't know if my knee could handle that. I'm kidding. Or
Yeah.
it's, you know, I don't feel it. So maybe it would do good and I just peg leg like the whole thing.
Well, you know, at least if you would have to pop your leg in socket there, someone would see you on the track and help you. You wouldn't have to do it by yourself.
I would have to do it myself. Someone who knows the thing could actually help me.
Yeah, they'd be like, we're calling the hospital. You'd be like, nope, I got this.
I got this.
Nope. Don't put it on my insurance. I got it.
Well, so I've got to I got to ask you this because we ask everybody this, and we'll start doing some questions here in a minute. But you know, we kind of already know the answer to this because you've talked about it a little bit, but it's kind of a question we ask everybody on here, and I'll change yours just a little bit, but like why do you run? Why do you bike? Why do you do these things? Like what keeps you motivated and keeps you going, wanting to do it?
Yeah. Just, you know, I've never gotten the opportunity to, and I finally do, so why not? And I know a lot of transplant recipients who haven't gotten to do anything after their transplant because they're still so sick too. So I feel like I'm also doing this for them, and I'm also doing this for science, and I'm wanting to show the doctors that we can push ourselves, and I want people to see that, you know, even who don't have a transplant, that they can go out and do something whether they think they can or not.
Man, that's I love that. What does your doctor think about the things that you've already done?
I'm always a surprise. I'll say that. So after like 4 months of me having my transplant, I become a zipline guide. And then ever since then, they're like, "You're gonna be trouble." And then like I jumped off a bridge not long after that. And then I went whitewater kayaking, and I got stuck in a tree. Like,
oh wow,
yeah. And so I do tell them the stories so they know what I'm doing. They're not very. They're happy for me. They're happy that I'm doing it, and they're happy that I'm happy doing it. But they are terrified for me. Because they're like, none of our other transplant recipients do this stuff. And I'm like, that's the point of it. It's like, I want to do it so then you can tell others that they can too, and they don't have to live in a bubble. But yeah, they're okay with it now. At first, they did not like it, and one of them threatened to kick me out of their program, and I was like,
wow.
Well, yeah. So I was like, well, you know, I'm a good statistic to have. So that's what I threw in the resume. I'm a very good statistic to have. And they were like, you're not wrong. So they become okay with it now, as long as I communicate and I tell them what I'm like doing, and I make sure my nutrition's good and all my my blood labs are good. As long as those things are good now, they're fine. It's taken 5 years for them to get this far, but it's there finally.
Well, you know, the thing about it is you spent the first 20 27 years of your life not
Yeah.
getting to do things that you were destined to do, that you've wanted to do, and that you're capable of doing.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to take that away from you now.
No.
So,
No.
you know,
No, they're
I
always
can't imagine the gratitude and the joy you have when you get out there and get to do your thing. I can't
oh yeah.
imagine.
No, yeah. I mean, depending on where I'm at in the race, usually I have a smile or I got some RBF going on. But behind the RBF is a lot of gratitude, knowing that even at times when I'm like competing, that I'm even able to compete with some normal people, that I can actually go out there and be an athlete sort of next to them, and never thought that that would be possible. So that's always fun.
So awesome. I mean, it really is remarkable.
Thanks.
Well, we're going to turn this over to Matthew for a minute because he's got some questions from listeners for you. And then I would imagine by the time he gets done, someone else will have a question for you as well.
Well, realistically, if we just sit here, we can ask questions all night. The story it's been pretty amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything about you before this.
You learned a lot.
Just learning this is like, stuff that we've took for granted for our whole lives. You're just now experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's touching. Like I'm over here like trying to hold back tears from some of the stuff you're saying. So it's awesome. Just listen to it.
Yeah, and I've already named the podcast just from listening to you talk, and it just made me think like, just breathe. Like I mean that's something like that we all take for granted.
Yeah.
And you don't even think about that till I hear your story.
Exactly.
But like just waking up in the morning.
Yeah.
And just taking a deep breath, like that's something that you never got to really experience.
No, yeah, and you're right. People take it for granted and just, and it's just something your body does naturally. You don't even think about it. But when you stop and think about it, it is one of the most vital things that your body needs to survive. And we don't even think about it on the daily because it's just something that we're used to doing without even thinking about it.
Yeah, well, and that, that is just a life quote in itself because you don't really know what you have until something's taken away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And that applies to many things, but I can honestly say I've never thought about just not being able to breathe. So
I mean,
I can imagine going on road trips and taking 20 oxygen tanks with me or whatever, like I can't imagine like planning that. And your husband, was just full force in. He sounds like an amazing person too. I wish, if he's there, he's welcome to say hi at the end of this podcast, but he, like you all sound like an amazing team. But just thinking about that, like I can't imagine how much time and investment it took just to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Every step is a process and a list just to go anywhere. And it's 30 minutes of checking the breathing stuff and checking to see how much oxygen each tank has to see if it can last that long. And if I can't do that, we'll hook up the oxygen concentrator. Yeah. And during it, I didn't realize how much time I was spending because I didn't know any better. Like that, I was sick my whole life. So like doing all these little things, like it wasn't a big deal to me, but like to Kevin, I can see now that it was because he's never been like sick. So he was always like stressed out. And like now I look back at it and I'm like, I see why. And it just took a lot of time. And now I'm like, what do I do with all this time? It's like, I'm just like, there's so much time in the day now. I feel like I have 2 days in one all the time. There's so much time to do stuff.
Kassandra, was there before we get into Matt's questions, was there a whole new group when you started getting into some of this that family members or friends, it's like, what are you doing? You need to be much more careful. You need to, you need to not eat out of the bowl of Skittles at the aid station. You need to stay in the bubble because of this. Or did you just decide, no, I'm going to eat out of the bowl of Skittles? I'm going to live, my life now.
Yeah, everyone was they were worried about that, and they were like, what if you push your body to the limit? And it's like, if I do, then I know that's my limit. And I think that they took that as, I'm going to do what I want until I can't. And I pretty much told everybody after my transplant, I'm like, nothing is going to hold me back. As soon as my sternum was clear, like, to do stuff, I was like, you guys better get ready.
All right, so we'll go ahead and let Matt start with some questions from the listeners.
All right, here we go. How many races have you done since the transplant?
So I haven't actually counted. I think maybe I would say around 20 races or so.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Not wasting any time.
No, she's right.
no, I think that's all within a year or a year and a half. I've done 20 races. So ever since I started mountain biking and getting good at that, I started racing mountain bikes. And then, so that was about 2 years ago. And then half a year into mountain biking, I started racing. So I would say around 20 something. Yeah.
That is amazing. That really is.
That is awesome.
No wonder your doctors were like,
What's she
what
doing?
are you doing?
Yeah. They're like, this is really fast. And I'm like, I'm fine.
Did you say, I have a steel plate?
Yeah. Yeah, I tell Vanderbilt that all the time because they didn't do my transplant. Like, Massachusetts gave me this for a reason. And they're just like, and they just roll their eyes. They're like, yep, they sure did. And they're probably like, thanks for giving us your patient. Thanks, guys.
Okay, the next one says, since your transplant, where does your passion for endurance come from?
Just never being able to do it. And like I said, watching people do it and being able to breathe like I've never been able to breathe before. And watching other people do it, that's always fun during the races. And a passion for it is just pushing my body to the limits that I never thought was capable of doing. And I like seeing that my lungs are a lot stronger than my body actually is, and just seeing that my body needs to be able to catch up with my lungs now. So that's always fun and cool. And since my donor that I heard was also an endurance athlete, that's sort of where that comes to play as well. Is that I want to carry my donor with me while I do all these races and all these sports.
Well, I mean, you've already carried them across 20 races. That's pretty impressive. That's so amazing.
That is.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get into your training now. How many miles per week do you put on, say, the bikes or running?
It really depends. I would say I bike around 60 miles per week, and then I have about 4 running training sessions, and I usually run a half marathon every week. And then so probably about 30 running miles, and then I do 5 swimming miles. So almost around 100 miles altogether with all my training, with all 3.
That is good.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I need to learn how to swim.
Plus, you run a race or ride a race or do something every weekend. So.
Yeah, plus that. So after my race, I always have a training session after my race.
Do you really?
Yeah, so if I bike, I have to run after. If I have a running race, I usually have to bike 45 miles or so. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Preparing
it's fun being a triathlete.
Baby.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's fun being a triathlete. We signed up for it.
Also into your training, what kind of nutrition do you take during the training and during the events?
I take a lot of high carb supplements. I like Martin gels the most because I can get the most carbs out of it without it being a heavy, like very heavy on my stomach. I also like doing Scratch, the super carbohydrate drink.
Mhm.
That's good for me to get carbohydrates. And then I do the Element all throughout my trainings for the salt. And that's pretty much all I do is like those three things. And then of course I do like a recovery drink after from Flow Formulas.
I haven't heard of that one.
You've
Flow?
you've definitely tested that.
Yeah. I've tested a whole bunch of things. Like, I had this one huge bill from the feed, and he's like, "What is this from?" I was like, "I'm experimenting." He was just like, "Why is it so expensive?" I was like, "Because it's training food." He's like, "Why can't you just make food?" And I did try to make rice cakes, did not go well. Not a fan. So I'll stick with Martin gels and my
Yeah,
Scratch.
Martin gels in themselves are very expensive.
Yes, they are. And of course, my husband is like, "Oh, of course, you need the most expensive gel out there."
I think those are the most expensive
They
gels. You're
are, yeah, they're like $4.50 a gel.
Yes. That's why I only use them during the marathons. That's it. Like training,
I hate
there's
to
no
take
way.
one during training. You're like, oh man, that's
Did,
$5.
did you tell him
Yeah.
that you only put the good stuff in these lungs?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm always like, remember, I'm an investment. He's like, yeah, you are, I guess.
It's a $1 million body, baby.
There you go. Literally.
All right, we'll go back to when you first got your brand new lungs.
Mhm.
What did it feel like running after that?
Um. So the first 6 miles that I ran, is that what
Yeah.
we're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah. My lungs were totally fine. I was breathing fine, and I was very surprised. It was just my body was not strong enough to keep up with my lungs, and so I've had to really work on my body strength to be able to. So that is like my limiting factor right now. It's just my body and like its strength. So yeah, it was actually really easy to breathe during my first run. And that's sort of what got me addicted too, because I was like, well, this is really cool. Like I can run this, I can run this many miles and not be out of breath. So then I'm just like, I keep wanting to increase it and see, I don't know, how far I can go.
yeah. That's awesome knowing that those lungs are, strong enough, stronger than the body that you've had, forever. And now the new
Yeah.
lungs are like, hey, you guys got to pick it up. We got to.
Yeah. My body's like, whoa, what are we doing here?
Okay, during an event, what gives you the strength to push on to move forward when things are tough?
Thinking of my donor, I think of them a lot during my races and events. When it gets hard, I'm like, what they probably went through was a lot harder than what I'm going through now. And I always think about that as well. It's like I have been through harder things in life than a race and an event.
Yeah.
And it's like I have almost died, and it's like, races get hard, but it's like hopefully you're not gonna die doing them. But it's just like I've already been to that point before, so it's just like I just think of that and I always say like I have done harder things than this race that I'm doing right now.
And my last question is, what are your endurance goals going forward?
Definitely to do the Ironmans and to do ultras. I think that's where my path is leading me, is to do ultras because I really like running. The only reason why I haven't started doing ultras is because I'm terrified of the dark. And you have to run in the dark in an ultra. So, like,
Yep.
yeah, so that's the only thing like holding me back because, the skinwalkers are scary and, and Sasquatch. So, that's the only like thing like holding me back is the dark. So, I've been doing some exposure therapy of going out and being in the dark. So I'm hoping by the time all my Ironman things, like, I'll be better and get some big old headlights out there. You'll see me coming. You'll know that's me. But yeah, that is my ultimate goal, is to get to do ultra marathons. And I don't know, I've also dreamt of doing like a 250, like a 250 miler. I don't know. That's something I want to do in the back of my head. We'll see what happens.
Well, and you don't necessarily have to run in the dark for your very first ultra. You could do like a 12-hour event that starts at like, 8 and runs till 8. So you can always step into it like that, because that'll probably give you, 40, 50 miles. So we got a friend that is absolutely terrified of the dark, and he did his first 100 miler not too long ago. Yeah. So he's
talking about you, Kyle.
Yeah, he's absolutely scared of the dark. He wouldn't even run in the dark, I don't think, until about a year, over the last year.
Well, after he did the Mad Backyard and he popped up 70 or 80 miles, he's like, well, this dark stuff isn't too bad.
So you're not the only one there, but definitely, like, and that would be my recommendation for your first ultra. And when you get ready, we'll help you find one. There's all kinds of them around. There good race directors in this area, so you're blessed there.
Yeah.
But cool. Do a 6-hour or a 12-hour event for your first time, and you may not actually get an ultra in the 6 hours, depending on what you're doing, but it would at least be a good test out there, and then from there you can go on and see what you need to do.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I don't know. I haven't thought about the 12 hours. I guess I haven't seen a lot of 12-hour races, so. Isn't Firewater like 33?
Yeah, Firewater is we work that race every year. So Tony and Kathy are the race directors for Magic Number events. It's an awesome race. It's actually right here in our backyard.
Oh, cool.
That's where I grew up. It's a 50K and 100K. So it's 31 miles, and it's an absolutely beautiful trail by the lake the whole way. So it is just beautiful. And it is a very well maintained trail. It is. So there's actually a group of people that have sections of it, and they take care of it every week.
Oh wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay.
So that's a really good one. It's usually in October.
Okay.
That's a really good first ultra. Like if you want to do the 50K, that's a great one. I wouldn't recommend jumping into the 100K for the first one.
No. Okay.
But the 50K is absolutely awesome. Good aid stations. You don't really go more than about 7 miles without an aid station.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
That's actually
and you can come party with us. We'll be there right in the middle, East Coast event. We'll have our normal aid station set up. But that was awesome. That would be a good one for you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that one. Who knows? I may do it this October.
Well, and I'll tell you what, like if you just want to, if you ever just want to come hang out at one of our events or one of the events we're even working, let us know. You can come join the East Coast Adventures tent, and you can at least meet some of the ultra runners in the group and see everybody. But you'll see how much different the camaraderie and the feeling of an ultra is compared to that, because you're going to see people out there high-fiving. You're going to see someone running by at mile 50 taking a shot of Fireball or down in a beer and going right back out and just laughing and having fun, because I mean that, they're racing, but they have fun when they do it.
Yeah, and that's what it's about. Yeah, and that's what it should be about.
And I think you are 100% going to fall in love with that.
Yep.
Yay! Yeah, that's what I've been noticing. Like, that's sort of what my personality is like an ultra runner, basically. And that's what my coach has told me too. So even she's like, get your Ironman over with and you can just go on over there.
Well, like I said, if you ever see an event that we're going to or that we're working, let us know. Reach out to one of us. We'll put you right in there in the tent with us. You can hang out and meet everybody. It'd be fun.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really nice of you. Thank you.
Yeah. Matt, Mike, any other questions?
No, you've been awesome. Yeah, I I didn't know what to expect, and it was even better than I anticipated and everything. You don't know yet how many people you're possibly going to reach with your story. I mean,
Thank
and that's
you.
just amazing because, like I said, I think there's so many people out there. I guess what really got me is when you were ready to give up and
Mhm.
you didn't, and that to me is like, man, you were at that point, and I don't think any of us can experience that. We
No.
have tough races, but we're just not. We've never been in a position, where we've just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I fought this for as long as you fought it.
Mhm.
You've been told you can't do this for as long as people told you that, and you were done. I think you come at peace the way you said, and
Mhm.
it amazed me that you just come back with so much. And I think someone out there listening to this is going to hear your story, and it's going to give them that hope that there's still more out there that you just don't know about yet.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for saying all that. That means a lot.
Well, he's 100% spot on.
Yeah.
You're going to touch a lot of people's lives, and you're going to change a lot of people's lives throughout your career here in what you're doing with
Thanks.
running and with triathlons and just pushing the boundaries. I have one last question for you, and
Okay.
I wanted to ask this earlier, and I just forgot. It's my ADHD, I guess. I started thinking about something. But you said that your leg, you had an injury, or you've had issues with your leg after your transplant. So
Mhm.
that wasn't something that you had dealt with before?
No, not really. So I don't know if you're familiar with an ECMO machine.
No.
So when a heart transplant and a lung transplant patient has to have the transplant, they put a I guess like a big needle tube in your groin area, and it's very invasive, and it pumps the oxygen in the blood for you because they're taking out the lungs, so they can't do that anymore. So when they did that, they messed up my groin and they messed up the circulation in my leg. And then I have like a pinched nerve in my back that makes part of my leg down in my calf not work and trigger. So it just like sits there limp or not doing much until it gets mad. So that's so that's sort of like where those two come from. It's like the pinched nerve in my back and the ECMO machine messed up the circulation in my hip groin. So, and I've heard a lot of transplant people actually have that issue with the lung and the heart transplants. So, other transplants don't need that machine because they're not taking out a vital organ.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have those issues.
Mhm.
Well, that's not slowing you down any,
No.
obviously. So
If anything, it's a superpower. If my one leg gets tired, I'll go on my leg that I can't feel.
I just think your story is amazing, super inspiring, and I mean, it makes me just kind of step back a little bit and just be grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
everything that I've probably taken for granted at this point. With just being able to breathe, and some people would wake up and realize that they got leg issues, and they would use that as an excuse.
Yes,
And
exactly.
you have not used anything as an excuse. If anything, it's even made you more grateful and even kind. Your kindness just shows through in the things that when you're talking about it, and the joy, and it's just so humbling and touching to hear. And I'm kind of in awe. Like, nothing's going to hold you back. And I'm sure your husband's probably just sitting here like, what are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah. Yep. He's always like, I don't have to go on the run with you, do I? Or he's like, you didn't sign me up for that race too, did you? And I'm like, no, don't worry. He's like, good, because I just want to feed you the snacks. No, he does it. He just works a lot, and like his thing is whitewater kayaking, and that's totally fine. As long as he gives me my snacks during the races, that's totally fine.
There you go. There you go. Teamwork.
Yep, exactly. One of us has to do all the work. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, Kassandra, do you have any questions at all for us?
Any questions for you?
Yeah. See, we caught you off guard.
Yeah,
didn't we?
you did catch me off guard. Yeah. I really don't know. Not that I can think of.
Well, if you think of any later, you just let us know.
Yeah. Okay. I definitely will.
Yeah. And reach out, like when you get serious about your first ultra, you reach out to us. We'll be glad to. Like I said, there's so many great races and race directors around here. You're blessed there, so we'll help you find one.
Awesome.
But most importantly, thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your story, and it's just been amazing to listen to. Some people would call my lack of studying, the person we're interviewing laziness, but I like to be in shock. So it was just like, like Mike said, and it was just really amazing to hear everything that you've overcome and where you're at now. And you're nowhere near done.
Oh, no.
The things you're going to do is amazing. And I'm so happy for you that you finally are getting to live the life that you've watched other people live that you've wanted. And that's so touching and so amazing to see. So you keep doing that, and you keep inspiring people, and you just keep pushing. And if there's anything we can ever help you with on this journey, you let us know.
Thank you. Thanks. You made me cry.
Well, it's just true.
Thank you.
Well, Kassandra, thank you so much. If you don't care, hang on the podcast for just a minute, but we're gonna close the recording. But thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.